Hello, welcome to the making of the Tale of Gabriel Grubb. This film was made in 2004. This was one of the first short films that I ever made, and it was quite an ambitious tale. Most people my age at that time were making short films that happened in coffee shops or, corner stores or even in their backyard. And don't get me wrong, I did a lot of that. I did a lot of short films with my cousins, running around, having fun, just trying to learn the craft of filmmaking. But when I wanted to actually do something that was a little bit bigger, I felt the story of this gravedigger coming face to face with a Goblin King was right up my alley. The actual title of this story is The Goblins Who Stole a Sexton. If the title of that story is familiar to you, it's probably due to the fact that story editors and professors around the world refer to it as a predecessor to A Christmas Carol, both written by Charles Dickens. And like Dickens' most famous supernatural tale, this is a Christmas story. Though the film doesn't take place at Christmas, the story itself is set in Victorian England on Christmas Eve.
A stone at the head, a stone at the feet, a rich juicy meal for worms to eat.
Brave lodgings for one. Brave lodgings for one. A few feet of cold earth. When life is done. A stone at the head and a stone at the feet. A warm, juicy meal for the worms to eat. Rain grass overhead and damp clay all around. Brave lodgings for one on these holy grounds.
But the story, like our film, follows a miserly gravedigger through an evening of supernatural events. And these supernatural events result in a transformative comprehension of human suffering, beauty, and love. Like most of Dickens' early ghost stories, this one will not prevent you from falling asleep from fear, but it is capable of lingering in the imagination for longer than you may first suppose, which is one of the reasons why I was drawn to the story in the first place. Now, with that being said, there was very little budget. And when I mean very little, there was zero. It was literally just myself with a camera, with a mic on the camera. I didn't even have a proper audio recordist, running around with people that I know, trying to get shots to put together what ended up being the film. That caused a little bit of a problem because, we had to have goblins. The Goblin King in the deleted scenes, which we'll play a little bit later, there was sort of like some minions around, but we needed to find a way to have that look okay. And thankfully, I believe it was through one of the producers on the film, my friend John, that I was pointed to this craftsperson named Pete Mander, he was experimenting and doing all sorts of visual effects in our area at that time. And we met and we talked about joining in together to make this project happen. And he said yes. He actually sculpted the Goblin's facial prosthetics out of couch cushions, which is interesting and unique. And then once again, this has been a long time, but I couldn't tell you quite the process that he used. I remember there was some sort of a bonding agent that was finished on the mask itself, but they work hard from couch cushions and spray painted and detailed, and it really shows up well in the film, like with how everything was lit. And he actually had a friend who came out and performed the Goblin King, Chris Dethridge, and he was a professional stilt walker, so we got him in costume, him up on stilts, and he really helped bring the Goblin King to life, which was interesting. I wish I did have his mask still. Where did that go? For the most part, the film was shot in and around Niagara-on-the-Lake, which had a lot of Victorian-style buildings, which we utilized the best we can to kind of give the film the feel that we thought it should have at the time. And as you may have seen, there is a lot of just Andrew Lowen, who plays Gabriel Grubb, playing to camera, which was me behind the camera. And don't get me wrong, it was great. It works because the story of Gabriel Grubb is partially about isolation and removing yourself from the world of beauty and love and friendship. So it kind of worked in that sense. But I feel like if this was done properly, we would have, actually been in a small Victorian town. We'd see the whole village, and we feel that was alive to kind of juxtaposition itself against him being, an outsider. Even though being an outsider was his choice all along. But, having this independent filmmaker mindset, we felt that this was something that was going to be very achievable, and just having me working with Andrew and then bringing in a couple other actors here and there, like you'll see, his wife, Penelope, played by Elena Phelps. Because we had no budget on this film, a lot of this was shot without permits wherever we could sneak here or there throughout the region. I know we utilized a lot of the Niagara Parkway. We were in the Niagara Gorge. The whole part in the cave sequence, we shot that in this rocky outcropping that we know we would see all the time when we were hiking in the Niagara Gorge, and we must have looked absolutely insane to the people down there. I remember people walking by and seeing us, what we were doing, and we had Andrew in his costume covered in mud and sweat, and I believe at that time we had a stand-in for the Goblin King, Rob Smith, and he had the Goblin outfit on, and he was kind of lording over Andrew and aka Gabriel, and we looked insane. We must have been, crazy to lug everybody down into the gorge, which is quite a hike, and get everyone in costume and just be shooting out in public. And it was 2004, so I think things were easier to get away with back then. I don't know if we would be able to do that these days. And I really need to kind of put emphasis on the idea that most of this was done almost as a one-man show. Like, I adapted the story into a script, I directed it, I was a cinematographer, I was the sound person, I edited, I did some visual effects that were there, very, very rudimentary. A lot of it we did try to capture practically, like the ground splitting open. I just figured out a cool way to do that. My mom hated me for this. Not hated, but she yelled at me for this. I dug up a plot of the backyard and about a good half foot and put it on this workbench that would separate, and I sawed it in half and put a light underneath and placed the camera down, and this served as the ground opening up in front of Gabriel. So when we started shaking the table when the camera was rolling, and just pulled it apart with the light shining up right into the camera. And that was like a very, very ingenious way, I thought, to show the ground splitting in front of him, though it did get me into a little bit of trouble. And for the rest of the post-production, I did all the sound effects myself, the color grade, which isn't the best, but I was learning at that time. And the interesting thing that really kind of helped, I feel, make this little movie come to life was the score by Alexander Doan, who was a friend of mine, and he was in school learning how to be a film composer at the University of Toronto at the time. And he was writing music for the short film, and we all thought that he was going to be doing it in his MIDI program at that time, but he had spoken to his professors at the school and was able to use his writing of the score as a part of his final project for the year. And in doing so, he was able to utilize the University of Toronto Symphony Orchestra to play the score. I think it's really beautiful. I think it's holding up even to this day. Looking back on making this, I think it was a bit crazy. It was ambitious and it was fun. I'm actually pretty impressed that I as a young filmmaker, decided to take on something like this. Sometimes I wish I still had that youthful exuberance where I don't know as much as I know now, because I feel like that led me into some interesting places where I don't know if I would traverse down now without having a bigger budget in place, but I'm glad that I was able to go ahead and get this film done and try something bigger than what I thought I could do at that time. And I still feel like there's something to this story. It's a timeless story, and like, in my opinion, all of Charles Dickens' work. And I feel that if there ever was a chance to make this into a larger film, that this could be something that would resonate out there with the rest of the world. This story of a tremendously angry gravedigger who's given a glimpse of his past wrongdoings on a Christmas Eve, walking away from it in the end transformed. I feel that that is something that maybe we need in this world these days. Maybe more than just for a miserly gravedigger. Maybe we all need a little bit of self-introspection. Now, one of the things I wanted to add into this little video were the scenes that were cut out of the film. Now, the unfortunate thing is that I only have these scenes existing in black and white. I don't know why at the time I felt my deleted scenes needed to be black and white, maybe to show that they were deleted or separate them from the rest of it. I cannot fathom my thinking behind that, but the scenes still exist, and I wanted to show them here for you today. So here we are, the scenes of the film that did not make it in, and you might understand why once you watch them, but it's still, for me to kind of look back on this almost 20 years later, it's pretty cool.
Many thanks.
By gum, it's a cold one out there tonight.
Sure is. Must be the coldest darn night of the year.
But thankfully, we find souls and blessed with a fine place like this to drink our ale and tell our stories.
Well said, old friend.
Bring me an ale. Quickly! Hey!
Oh, God.
Hey.
Steps on it when he's
I'm talking to you old timers.
Well then, what can we do for you tonight, young sir?
I ain't young and I ain't no sir. What I want to know is what two old crows like you are doing out on a night like this.
That's a mighty fine question.
Mighty fine question indeed.
We might be asking the same of you.
What did you say to me?
He said, we might be asking the same of you.
Do you know who I am?
Nope.
Couldn't care less either.
Well, you should. At the very least for your own safety. I've done some horrible things to men for saying a hell of a lot less than you two have this night.
My safety. Your safety is the one I'd be worried about.
My safety.
That's right, your safety.
I would think twice before challenging me, old man.
Forgive me, sir, but I think you've misunderstood my statement.
Oh, have I?
I believe you have, for it's neither of us is a threat to your safety. There are far more dangerous things walking about this life than us weary old men.
What are you talking about?
Dark things. Dark and dangerous things that will be attracted to men, just like you.
Men just like me.
Aye, men just like you.
And what is a man like me like?
Well, like Gabriel Grubb, I reckon.
Never heard of him.
Nor would you have, for that tale is almost but forgotten now. I myself have not heard it since I was about your age, but it's such a tale that I'll never forget it.
This is an old town. Many different walks of people have come and gone in its time, some good, some bad. But none such a soul was ever as ill-conditioned and cross-grained as one Gabriel Grubb. For the most part, Gabriel kept to himself, consorting with nobody but an old wicker bottle, which fitted into his large, deep waistcoat pocket. Living just outside of town, Gabriel would rarely see or be seen by any of the townspeople, which suited him just fine. By day, Gabriel would prepare the graves of the recently dead at the town church. And by night, he would lie in bed and think of measles, scarlet fever, thrush and whooping cough, just to raise his spirits before he fell to sleep. Many a thing's been said about the real reason why Gabriel was so miserable. Some say that he was mad. Others say he was a haunted man.
That's right, haunted by his late wife. Haunted because he married her for her family's money, and not because he cared about her. Haunted because when she died he shed no tears, plagued by her spirit for all the cruelties had done to her in life.
What it truly was, we may never know. But I'll tell you this much. Gabriel Grubb was a morose and awful man. He'd nothing but anger and spite running through his black heart.
Someone standing by the fence outside. His face is cold and his eyes are wide. I'm not scared 'cause I'm safe inside. I'm not scared but I think I'll hide. There's someone roaming on the porch outside. There's someone moaning on the porch outside. I'm not scared 'cause I'm safe inside. I'm not scared but I think I'll hide. Good evening, sir. How are you on this fine night?
That would be a lot better if it wasn't for your wallowing, you little urchin. You need to learn when to keep your mouth shut. Not everybody wants to hear your belly aching.
It's cold tonight. Perhaps something warm. That's a warm one indeed. Bring another bumper for our guest.
And so it was. No one ever heard from Gabriel Grubb again, at least round these parts. The next day, his spade, lantern and pocket watch were found lying near the grave he had been working on.
Some say that the goblins tortured him throughout the night, eventually changing his outlook on life.
And then again, others swear to have seen him being whisked away through the air on the back of a chestnut horse, blind of one eye, with the hindquarters of a lion and the tail of a bear.
But truth be told, I believe that he is still down there on this very day, being tortured deep within the Shadowland.
Do you expect me to believe that?
Believe it or not, the story is true. Evil attracts evil. That's why they took him. They were attached to the evil deep inside of his heart. And my advice to you, young sir, beware of that darkness that's coming from within you, or else you may very well share the same fate as our Gabriel Grubb.
That's right.
Goblins, huh? You two are crazier than I thought. All I have to say is you two gentlemen are lucky I was in a good mood tonight. Otherwise, you would have found yourself in a very different situation. And no story, no matter how many ghosts or goblins, could have saved you then. Thanks for the entertainment, gentlemen.
I hope you enjoyed this little behind the scenes of the tale of Gabriel Grubb. I know it wasn't as detailed as I liked it to be, or maybe you would have liked it to be, but it has been a long time since this film was made, and a lot of the materials that I've had previously are somewhere lost in my archives, but I'm thankful that I do have what I've shown you here today. I'm looking forward to bringing you more newer films and newer behind the scenes videos real soon. Until then.